I have a theory about the original Evil Dead movie that makes sense in my brain. I'm not sure if it's real or not. It's just something that I think could be plausible. Sam Raimi wrote and directed his horror movie, The Evil Dead, watched it over a bunch of times, and then said to himself, oh, there's a lot of really unintentionally goofy moments in this movie. And then when he got the opportunity to make a sequel, he said, to hell with the original. I don't have the time or the budget to make this thing legitimately scary, so I'm just gonna go total horror comedy goofball. And he did, and that's why we have the awesome Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. And then 20 years later, he said, oh, now I have the time and the money to make it legitimately scary, so let's make an Evil Dead remake happen. Now again, I'll specify, this is not history, or maybe it is history. I don't know if this actually happened. This is just what makes sense to me. When I saw the first trailer for this new, rebooted, remade Evil Dead, I wasn't happy. Even though I knew that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi gave it the thumbs up, and I think Sam Raimi even helped write it in some way, but you could still see from this trailer that they were trying to take the horror elements in Evil Dead and supercharge them for this remake. But see, when it comes to the Evil Dead franchise, my least favorite is the first one, and that's the one that's the scariest. What I like about Evil Dead is that it mixes this nasty horror and this hilarious comedy perfectly. So seeing that these trailers were obviously trying to play the movie up to go towards the horror route rather than the comedy route, I wasn't really looking forward to it. But as its own entity, how does the 2013 Evil Dead remake fare? You know, it was fine. I would call it more gruesome than scary. I mean, it definitely wasn't the most terrifying film I've ever experienced. I'll just say this. After seeing the trailers and knowing what to expect from this movie, after I walked out of the theater, I was satisfied. Meaning the things that I expected this movie to excel in, it did excel in. One of those things was the visuals. When this movie was first starting to become a thing, a big rumor that I heard about was that there was going to be no computer-generated effects at all in this movie, which for the most part is true. All the effects and all the visuals in this movie look really scary and real because they are real and they are there. But I think it's a little extreme to say there are absolutely no CG effects. I mean, the first scene in the movie, there's a steady shot of a girl on fire, and later in the movie there's a shot of a girl who had just cut her own arm off and there's a bunch of cartoon blood dripping out of it and stuff. But for the most part, no computer-generated effects, and that's why the movie looks so fantastic. As far as the acting goes, it was something. Remember what I said earlier about how the first Evil Dead has a lot of goofy moments that weren't supposed to be there? Yeah, this one does too, and that's because of the actors. In the context of the movie, there's a scene that you see in the trailers that's just really hilarious on screen. Like, everybody in the theater was laughing. And that's this one scene where the main character, I guess she's the main character, Mia, starts going a little bonkers. And she starts talking in this really terrified, like, John Malkovich-y voice.
David, I saw something in the woods, and I think it's in here with us now.
And I know that seemed scary in the trailers, but in the movie, it wasn't. If I'm going to give the actors in this movie anything, all of them are very good at being scared. Like, every time one of them screams in pain or in terror, you really feel it, and it gives you some chills. Okay, spoiler disclaimer, the rest of this video will contain a lot of spoilers from the Evil Dead 2013 movie, and probably some of the older movies as well, so if you don't want that stuff, then it's time to leave. In the original 3 Evil Dead movies, Bruce Campbell plays a guy named Ash, and he has a big arc throughout those 3 movies. In the first Evil Dead movie, Ash doesn't really do or say anything for most of the movie until the very end, when he has to kill a bunch of bad guys. In Evil Dead 2, he sort of becomes a badass throughout the movie, and in Army of Darkness, he's sort of a wisecracking badass the entire time. Character arc. Evil Dead 2013 seemingly takes the same route, except it's a lot more upfront about it. You got this guy named David, and they make it annoyingly clear in the beginning of the movie that he's a jerk, that he's done some mean things in the past, and he's kind of an evasive wimp for the entire movie until he has this sort of epiphany moment where he realizes that he has to fight all the demons and fight all the bad guys and save his sister's soul and all that, so he ends up saving the day. But unlike Ash, he burns alive. And it's at that point that his resurrected sister starts following in Ash's footsteps by losing her hand and using the chainsaw and fighting off the demons and eventually winning in the end. And at that point watching the movie, I was very confused. Like, why would you give David this big arc and spend so much time on him if he was just gonna die in the end and not become Ash? Because now it looks like with this new Evil Dead series that we're gonna get, this girl Mia is gonna be the big hero. But my problem with that is that we don't really find out that much about her throughout the entire movie, because she either spends most of the movie being a crazy druggie or a demon. Maybe the way they're going to go is that she ends up taking inspiration from her brother's badassery and his willingness to step up, and then she's going to become the big, awesome Ash hero for this new Evil Dead series, which I think is cool. So as far as the 2013 Evil Dead goes, I think it was alright. I mean, there were definitely a bunch of scenes during that movie where me, along with a bunch of other people in the theater, were laughing. So maybe they'll take a hint of that and they'll start going the more goofy route that I like in future Evil Dead movies. Now, I've heard a lot of crazy stories about the future of Evil Dead. Like, stuff so far as there's going to be a couple sequels to Evil Dead 2013, and there's going to be a couple sequels to Army of Darkness, like, separately, and then Bruce Campbell and Mia from the new one are going to merge, and they're going to be in a movie together or something, which I think is crazy, and I feel like there's going to be a lot going on. It's going to be very complicated, but whatever. Anyways, I've seen a few interviews with Bruce Campbell about potential Army of Darkness sequels and the future of this new Evil Dead franchise, and whether they're going to merge or whether they're going to stay separate, and a bunch of complicated stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So after taking into account what I'd come to expect from this new Evil Dead after seeing the trailers and stuff, I can't really say that I'm disappointed. I enjoyed it. If I had to sum up Evil Dead 2013 in one word, it would be groovy. That's your hint. Stay after the credits.